Good evening, Packers fans. Aaron Negler here with your evening edition of your Packers Daily Chat. Negler at night. Shout out to the old school pandemic vibe there. For those of you who don't remember or maybe weren't following along back in 2020, that was a somewhat regular feature here on the channel where I would chat with Packers fans late at night. And since we were here in the evening, I thought I'd bring it back. But uh, good to see everybody already in the comments. Thanks so much for hanging out, talking some Packers with me later in the evening than usual. And thanks for your patience. Been down in Orlando with my daughters, having a ball at Disney World, having a grand old time. Except for the odd occasion where I get texts from people about things going on at the league meetings and seeing stuff on social and people asking me questions about stuff that I'm not paying attention to in that moment because I'm trying to have a good time, which I did. But now I'm back in New York, diving into everything that happened while I was away. And there was a lot. A lot went down, a lot transpired, as it were. Top of mind is definitely the conversation around the city of Green Bay breaking off negotiations with the Packers when it comes to their lease. Not that there's any kind of instant ramifications going on there, but to me, it's a fascinating kind of look into the dynamics between the team and the city. And it's probably something that I think, I'd probably say 90% of Packers fans don't ever think about and don't ever worry about. And they shouldn't worry, but it is fascinating to me anyway. Of course, there was the other big news. It probably would have been the headline had that not occurred, but the Packers down to one of two teams to potentially open against the Eagles on a Friday night down there in Brazil between the Packers and the Browns. Mark Murphy laying out some of the concerns regarding getting the team from Green Bay, just physically getting them from Green Bay down to Brazil for the game. Still could potentially happen. Obviously, I know there is a monster, and I mean ginormous representation when it comes to Packers fans in the country of Brazil. And I hear your cries, I hear your pleas, your entreaties. I really hope it happens for the fan base in Brazil, if for no other reason. And I understand people talking about, the international travel thing and the fact that the Packers were just in London 2 years ago, etc. This is where the game is headed. This is where the league is headed as far as trying to find more pockets of international appeal. I think some of the NFL understands. I don't think the Green Bay Packers really appreciate or understand how beloved they are worldwide. I think they give it good lip service, but there is a devoted following of the green and gold, obviously worldwide, but definitely in Brazil. And for that reason, I really, again, hope this ends up working out. But no sure thing. Still about a week to go, according to Murphy. So we'll hopefully find out sometime next week. Um, and then, hey, yeah, the Packers signed a kicker. Thanks, Brian. A couple months too late, but thanks for that. The fact that he is a former Viking, is that supposed to, like, even the odds for the Aaron Jones thing? I don't know. Maybe not. And then, of course, there's the banning of the swivel hip drop tackle. Maybe, I don't know. I'm not going to rant about it. I was pissed beyond belief when I saw that it had, the gone through the NFL essentially releasing in a statement that it banned the practice of the swivel hip drop tackle. I understand the pushback and the reasoning the players who have been injured by that technique have for saying, it's is a good thing and they should be outlawing it, post haste, etc. I also understand why defensive players feel beset upon and why it is getting more and more difficult to look at the league as a serious steward of the game of football. They are certainly very good at making money. They're absolutely incredible at driving interest in the game they are producing, though that game gets further and further away from actual football the longer we go here. But those are my preliminary kind of, musings, as it were, sitting back down and saying hi to everybody. a whole lot of people here. Thanks so much for joining me, everybody. I'll get to your questions here and I'll stop rambling. Starting with Roberto. What's up, man? I hope Goot trades mid-round pick for Buda Baker. Roberto. Oh, Roberto. I'm glad you started us off right here because I can just tell you, nah, that's not going to happen. I know we've talked about potential, and I know Brian has mentioned the potential for a picks for player trade or a pick for player trade. He's kind of checked that twice now in public. I'd be absolutely shocked. I don't see them going that route. I suspect they will draft a safety or maybe even two, but giving up a pick for a player who you will then have to pay a big time contract to after you just paid McKinney a big time contract at the safety position, I don't see it happening. John, thanks for being a Care of the G Club member. Appreciate you, man. Welcome back, Nags. Hope you enjoyed Disney. Why doesn't it seem like the NFL? Why does it seem like the NFL hates football? How are you supposed to tackle also Cody Schroeder to Green Bay? Oh, that's a possibility. John, yeah, the hates defense thing. I know I joke about that a bit on Twitter, but it does feel like that, right? And I know, hey, look, we've had Richard Sherman and Charles Woodson and J.J. Watt come out pretty, I'm not going to say forcefully, but, pretty blatantly in opposition to this decision. And as Woodson said, and I think one of the key, not key, but one of the more popular clips that people have been playing is Andrews, the Baltimore tight end, getting hurt. And in that clip, you know, Chuck Charles essentially reiterated what I said last week, where, what is he supposed to do in that instance to get into quote good position? Because that's the opposition, right? That's what every pushback you get is like, oh, the tackling technique is terrible. Get in good position and make a form tackle. Well, in that instance, in that clip in question, the only way to do that is to run in front of the carrier while he's barreling towards the end zone. What is by the time you get in a good position, that's a touchdown. Or as Charles said, just push him from behind and everybody will be happy. This theoretical idea that the NFL wants to trot out there and say, like, this is, how it's you're expected to tackle. And if you don't, we are going to freeze frame this frame by frame, millisecond by millisecond during the week. And if you do not adhere to said form tackling, we will fine you. They're just stealing from defensive players at that point. It's patently absurd. Jeezy baby, what's up, man? Why do you think the Packers voted against the kickoff rule change? Well, of course, I buy Murphy at what he said when he had his interview, both with the local press and with Larry there on Packers.com, and I understand it, and I think it's feasible that he really did think, okay, can we just try this in the preseason first, like, and see how it works? They've done that with other things, other rules proposals. Do it in the preseason for a year. Take a look at it. Look back at the tape. Make your determinations, and then maybe implement it in season. But clearly, they were in the minority. I think the Packers were one of 3 teams to vote against it, and it is only a 1-year, rule. So the league will go back and look at it after this year. But yeah, that idea of, do we really want to have such a drastic change in a what could be a pretty vital, or important play, uh, given how big the change is going to be. Um, yeah, I mean, I understand it. I understand his misgivings there. I don't think that's crazy, but as he also said, they'll support the rule, and they've re-signed Keyshawn Nixon, and hopefully Rich Bisaccia and company can come up with some creative ways to make the best of the situation and bust him out for some substantial gains at some point. Although it is interesting because with this rule in the XFL, though it's not exactly the same, there are some differences, but there weren't lots of big returns in the XFL, you know? So the idea of busting a bunch of 50, 60 yarders or big touchdown returns, I don't think that's going to materialize so much as the attempt to try and get yourself into much better field position than you would have had in the old kind of setup of at 25, right? Of all the touchbacks we saw. But we'll see how it transpires. Mimsy, what's up, man? Who has the leverage? Has Mark heard of inflation? Yeah, okay, the whole I'm glad you asked there. I mean, look, both sides, I understand, are gonna try to curry favor with the public. There's zero doubt the public is always gonna side the majority will side with the Packers. I mean, that's neither here nor there, really, but they're gonna try and make the public case for what they have to do. Although, the Packers have a formidable advantage as far as messaging and ability to get their message out. And um, the most curious thing to me, there's two things that I find fascinating or somewhat curious, dependent. Um, One is the mayor calling up Mark Murphy and saying, "Yeah, we're halting negotiations." When there, as far as I can tell, the city has not made any written proposal. They have chided the Packers about their proposals, multiple, but they haven't offered their own. And then we know from Rich Ryman's reporting that they were also interested in the Packers making, more or more substantial investments in the community, in the city proper, in Green Bay proper, as opposed to Titletown, which is technically in Ashwaubenon. But they have some very specific numbers and a timeline they want the Packers to adhere to. And obviously, the Packers very much want to stick to their own kind of devices as far as where they spend their money and how they do it. But the mayor just coming out and or not even coming out, just calling the CEO of the Packers without ever having put forth his own or their own proposal, it's just odd to me. I don't understand with 9 years remaining on the lease and an option to apparently kick it up to 18. I don't understand the need for that gesture. I don't get the audience there. You know, on the flip side, man, I think it's really interesting that Rich Ryman just happened to drop an article the day Mark Murphy just happened to be appearing in front of the press. Come on. With, an issue that has multiple years ahead of it until they even have to address it or until it really becomes a problem, right? Now, Murphy used that time to kind of put forth, well, we were going to do all this cool stuff to Lambeau, but now we got to put that on hold. We really wanted this to be ready for the draft, but now that might not happen. Now, this is all out there yesterday because that article dropped and then Mark got asked about it. Also, by the way, Mark got asked about it by a reporter from the paper that the article dropped in. So it's just that to me, when I talk about the Packers having a formidable advantage when it comes to how they get their message out there. You know, Now look, I think the Packers are well within their rights, and I completely understand their being reticent, right, in the midst of these negotiations, which are all happening in good faith on both sides, to sit there and say, "Wait a second, we're trying to work with you," and then you literally just cut off talks. So I get why the Packers would say, "Okay, no, all right, we got to stop what we're doing here as far as all the money we're continuing to invest in this property, which we have, we do not take public money. There was the referendum in 2003 that ran its course. They have put what 600 million or whatever it is back into Lambeau Field, and yes, they have taken money as far as stock sales goes, but they have spent that. They spent it on the scoreboards and a few other things at Lambeau. So it's like I understand the Packers saying, "Wait a second, like we have been really good partners, and I understand that we are maybe not seeing eye to eye right here." But the mayor's own statement talked about like, "Oh, there's a path here, there's a way forward." So why the gesture having to call the CEO and say, "Yeah, we're stopping talks." And look, on the mayor's side, I completely understand he has a fiduciary responsibility to his constituents, to the taxpayers, and he has to be looking out for them. I get that. But again, I don't understand what the gesture is for. The gesture of calling Murphy and saying, okay, we're stopping talks. Because that's what it does. It's just a gesture. The Packers clearly have utilized what means are at their disposal to try and push back and jumpstart things, hopefully sooner rather than later. So as far as leverage, man, it's always the Packers. We know this. Cheese said, Joey, what's up, man? Random Packer, Al Romaine. That's a deep cut, man. That is a deep cut. TKM, good to see you at your post. Nags, Admiral Beach, but jumping in to say hello to my fellow fanatics. Thank you, TKM. Appreciate you, brother. Roberto, thanks again. I hope Goot can trade for Buda Baker. Roberto, I don't know how to tell you this, but it's probably not going to happen, man. Eric, thanks for the super chat, man. Can the NFL just make these refs full time already? Game changing new rules equal big adjustment period, and we as fans have to deal with it. Random Packer, Jarrett Boykin. Jarrett Boykin pull. Yeah, I've been railing about this for years, and no one seems to care, but I agree. The fact that they're officials who have to adjudicate these things full speed, real time, and then things change so drastically in the offseason, thanks to the competition committee. And then they have these part-timers who have to come in and, basically get coached up on what the rules are and then try to officiate world-class athletes with the whole world looking at them, things being broken down in high def, etc. It's madness to me. Like why they're not full time. I know why they're not full time. Owners don't want to pay them, but they should be full time. It's nuts, man. It's absolutely nuts. She said, Joey, thanks again, man. Dave Roller. Are you just looking up? Okay, she said, Joey again. One more random Packer, Brady Papinga. Papinga. Shout out Brady. Brady was always awesome to Cheesehead TV. He's a good dude. Crazy, but a good dude. Next, how surprised are you that Matt LaFleur was so caught off guard by the Aaron Jones release / Jacobs signing? Silos? That's an interesting question. I think he's probably like most of us. Yes, he talks to Brian every day, unlike all of us. But I do think Brian, had every intention of bringing Aaron back, and things broke down. And then Matt, undoubtedly was prepping for a season where he thought Aaron Jones was going to be available, and then finds out that that's not the case. I don't doubt for a moment that Matt is genuine when he says he was caught off guard, but I also think everybody in the business knows it's a business, and there's always a possibility that things may happen on the business side that affect you on the football side. So yeah, I mean, is it potentially like some more silo stuff? Maybe a break in the triangle, as Corey likes to say. Potentially, but I just think it's the business of football more than anything else. Big B, what's up, man? I just got paid, so here's my random Packers and Bachelor legend Dale Moss. Dale Moss. What a pull by Big B. Thanks, buddy. I appreciate you. That's amazing. What else we got here? Joshua, how are you, man? Get you up here. Who do you think will be wide receiver 1? This sounds suspiciously like a fantasy football question. I think Christian Watson, if he's healthy. I don't think it's close. And I know, look, Dobbs came out at the end of the year, right? Reed was insane his rookie season. Wicks, all of his metrics suggest that if he just gets more opportunities, he'll put up baller numbers. I don't dismiss any of it, right? But man, Christian Watson is a beast and an absolute stud. And if he can stay on the field, he will lap the competition in that regard. Now, all of that said, it's a huge if. Got to figure out that hamstring thing. And 2, it's not like wide receiver 1 is an actual thing in Green Bay. It's not because Christian missed all the time that those other guys came to the fore, had opportunities and blah, blah, blah. And like, oh, they're just doing that because Christian wasn't there and because of the mixing and matching, and they didn't really ever key on one dude, and you could never really know game to game who was going to get it, blah, blah. That's their philosophy, we've heard Matt talk about that even back when Devontae was still in town, as far as everybody learning concepts and being interchangeable and the ability to put them anywhere in the formation at any time to keep defenses guessing, to keep defensive coordinators, you know, unable to roll coverage a certain side or to a certain guy. Um, I think they like it that way, But if you want to talk traditional wide receiver one, your best candidate on the roster is Christian Watson, and I don't think it's particularly close. That's just me. Mimsy, what's up, man? Thanks for the super chat. The winners of the kickoff rule are EA Sports coders. Doubt it improves. Oh, that's great. Return rate. Lastly, are the Brewers scoreboards excessive? Compensating? You know what, Mimsy, I got to be honest. I saw the headlines about the new score. I haven't looked at anything on it. Like, I've just kind of scrolled by it on Twitter. But probably, let's say probably, shall we? Um, the EA Sports coders, yeah, they're going to get some overtime fixing the kickoff animations and all the intended rules and stuff inside the game for release in late August. They got some work to do. Dennis, how are you, buddy? Why don't the owners address making the referees full time? That seems more important than hip tackles. Love what you do, Mr. Nagler. Dennis, appreciate you, brother. Yeah, the referee's full time thing. Like I said, they don't want to pay him, and as much as anyone can come up with, the ideas or reasonings behind keeping them part time, it's just because the owners don't want to pay him when they very well could. As far as like the hip tackles and things like that, you got to remember that's not driven by ownership. That's driven by the competition committee, which then gets it in front of ownership. The competition committee loves to get together every offseason and create a problem or two where there really never was one. And I understand, again, that guys are getting hurt. I get it. No question. There are injuries in football. But take a look at the absurd overreaction the league had when Aaron Rodgers got hurt, when Barr landed on him and broke his collarbone. Totally legal play. And the NFL completely overreacted to where you can't breathe on the quarterback. You got to put a pillow under his head. And even after all of that, 16 starting quarterbacks missed games last year. It's like it's football. Guys get hurt. And the defensive players have done a really good job adjusting to the absurd rules around the quarterback. And I have zero doubt they will do a great job adjusting to these swivel hip drop tackle rules. But it diminishes the game. It completely imbalances the game to one side, which of course is the side which, most fantasy football players are interested in, that helps score points, that, get people turning on the television. It's not a mystery. But some of us enjoy the game of football, the entire game, including the defensive side. It's just where I'm at, man. That's just where I'm at. Chris, thanks for being a Care of the G Club member, man. Random Packer and Tecmo Bowl legend Bob Nelson. Tecmo Bowl legend. Most hated. How are you, brother? Nagler, hope you enjoyed your time away. I cannot express to you how much I enjoyed it. Nick, how you doing, man? In talks with behavioral/mental health rep Chris Barr with Packers, looking to run a piece on mental health for the players for an upcoming article. Nick, that's awesome. I assume that'll be at Packers Talk. Everyone should check it out. That's dope as hell. Menace says, Clay got it twice that year. I broke a TV remote on the one against the Rams. Oh, the Rams one was infuriating. Infuriating. Yeah, that was horrific. All right, everybody. I'm going to have to get going. I cannot thank you enough for hanging out late in the evening here, talking some Packers. I'll be back tomorrow at my regular time for Packers Daily. And don't forget, tomorrow night, if you're a Patreon member or a Carry the G Club member here on YouTube, the weekly happy hour will be tomorrow at 6 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Lambeau time. Joe getting in a last-minute super chat here. Latu is really talented edge who has had neck fusion surgery. Does Goot even consider someone with that medical history in the first round? Consider? Yes. Pull the trigger? I doubt it. That's just me. But I would suspect, not that he's off the board, but you know how cautious they are when it comes to things like any kind of medical issues. That's why Miles Jack was never a Packer. No, obviously that wasn't neck fusion, that was something else. But they, they will look at the tape and they will make the determination, and then they will talk to everybody on the medical side. And a lot of times, those conversations will sometimes, yes, take a player off the board, but you know, maybe not so much strike them off their board as much as like bump them down a bit, as it were. And then inevitably somebody else takes that chance. So we'll see. But again, I would highly doubt it. All right, buddy. I got to get going. Thank you so much. Have a great night. I'll be back regular time tomorrow. Have a great night. Go Pack Go.